Hello, everyone. I would like to officially welcome you to From Start to Finish, Business Planning and Collaboration with Your Brain. My name is Shelley Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today's event with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We've got some great examples, some of which we received from you. Shelley and I have received a few emails. We've been scanning Twitter. We've got a few different brain examples that have been suggested, so some great examples to share with you today.
Yeah, one thing that's kind of unique about this session, though you'll probably get a lot of this in the 101 classes, is in addition to our example brains, we are going to create live impromptu brains based on your suggestions. So I think yesterday, the day before, people were tweeting out stuff with hashtag business brain. You can still do that, or right now we've got the Q&A panel open in the GoToMeeting panel. It's called questions. Just click on that. Of course, ask any questions you want. We always reserve a good 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A. And then beyond that, if, hey, I am starting a new restaurant, I am freelancing on my own as a graphic designer, anything like that will go. And, we like to be thrown into the fire to create live mapping. So we're happy to do that. We do have some obviously canned examples as well if you guys are shy. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first brain that I have is I'm just going to move my webcam out of the way, is the My Business Brain template. So the whole idea and premise behind the brain is to visualize all your ideas and thoughts, but in a business setting, the DNA of the business is almost your business processes and these invisible operations that happen throughout the business, whether you're a large or small business. So there are some key domains of thought in your brain that you can have to get you going, because I understand, especially if you're a new user, some of you will take to the brain like nothing and start creating a bunch of thoughts on your new project that you're working on. But for others of you, especially if you're in a large organization, it can sort of be overwhelming, because really what we're doing in the brain is we're making the invisible visible. We are making things more explicitly conscious. And what that does is it provides a number of benefits. So if you have new employees, your training time, you will be amazed. Obviously, you'll be training them, but you can literally give them the brain and they can self-learn by seeing the connections. It is a great training and educational tool. Also, if you have turnover, your knowledge doesn't have to leave when you have all your baby boomers retiring or high turnover in a company. Their project information will be stored in the brain and referenced all the time. And then, of course, just reduced meeting time and efficiency. I just want to throw out these very fundamental benefits to all of you business users, because they are real benefits, and we see them in action from Fortune 500s and government organizations across the globe to small businesses right here in California or wherever. So just a little bit of inspiration for you as we start mapping the brain. And to make it easy, this particular brain is called that I'm starting on, and I'm in the brain 9 today. For those of you in the brain 8, some of the stuff is similar, and we have templates in both versions. This is called My Business Brain Template. So the first idea behind your brain is to really just map out all the key domains, as I mentioned. So I have a thought here for my work. So you can change this to whatever your business is. So I'll just do that, my business. And I will go ahead, and we're going to post this as a brain zip for you, so you have this to download. So what I've got below in this section are all the key areas of my company. So business development. So what you want to do in business development, I love using my brain for business development, because business development involves a lot of idea generation. So if you don't have a business development brain, create one and you'll see the benefits. First of all, starting with business development, competitors. So we actually have pre-thought types for competitors. So they get the little gloves here. So you can map out competitors A, B, and C. And I'll show you a live example of this, but I just want to kind of go tabula rasa, clean brain with you, so you can really see how to build that foundation. And then we'll move on to more complex examples. So I love having my competitors in the brain. You can link their products, their new product releases. If any features relate to yours that you're developing, or also, it's more about inspiration. If you're a designer, you may not have a direct competitor, but maybe you are very inspired about a company out there that's doing some great stuff. So this is a nice area in there, and business development can turn into new product development section. And then, of course, your target markets. You might have customer demographics that you want to put in, product applications, vertical markets, and of course, I've got target markets under business development as well as marketing. Now, one of the advantages of TheBrain is the ability to have one piece of information effectively located under multiple categories. So, of course, I can move into marketing, and there's so much we can do with marketing. You'll want to, if you do conference and event planning, which I do, although now most of our events are online, to be honest. All your stuff about, whatever conference you're going to, from your agendas to your brochures to your travel schedules, they can all go here very nicely. Just drag and drop all your information or create notes, and we'll show you how to do all that. Public relations as well. You can link to your PR firm. And what you'll notice too in your business brain is we not only have links to the domains, but to the people who are responsible. So I like to create jump thoughts. So in terms of the basics of the brain, anytime I look down at, or relative to my active thoughts below, these are my child thoughts, or my subcategories. So I'm in marketing, and I've got corporate branding, target markets, public relations, and online marketing as a child thought. And then and you can see below this, I've got stuff here. So my online marketing, my child thoughts are my company Facebook plan, my Twitter account, plans and information, my online advertising, and my search engine optimization. But again, one of the advantages is that I can have a particular piece of information under multiple categories. So unlike your folder system that can become gargantuous, here, online marketing relates to my website development. So I not only have it in my marketing area, but I have it in website development. And of course, creating new information is just as easy. So if we're going to start a new website design, I can just start typing in the first couple letters of that thought, and now I'm starting a new project in my brain. Now, in this particular brain, I actually have some templates too. So I can actually come over here. I can add a icon. New website design. Maybe I'll go into business, and we're in the business planning stage. So I'm just going to put a little clipboard there, and I can start adding information. Or if I want to do a design document, I can actually go ahead, add attachments. So if I want to add a document or drag and drop information. So what I'll do is maybe I'll add a Microsoft Word document to this, and then I'll launch, and I'll make my plan for web design. And the reason I'm starting to do this, just add content right away, is I want to show you that the brain isn't just, some brainstorming tool where it's a diagram. It's much more than a visualization. It becomes your working space. So now I've got that design document. Obviously I can add in any notes, and Matt will cover notes in his example. And I've got that website development. And this might be related to my team goals. So I'm going to go ahead and make a connection now to my company goals. And so as I do that, you can see how things are sort of coming together. So now in company goals, I've got increased sales, and we've got this new website development as our goal. And the other thing is, let me go back to my team. It's great to connect people. Now in this case, we just have thought types. You have different coworkers, A, B, and C. So let's say coworker B is going to work on the new website design. So what I can do is I can go ahead and connect coworker C to just start typing in new website design and make that connection. So now I can see when I'm starting my new website design that coworker B, who is a director because they've got thought types, is related. So let's go a little bit into thought types. So these are relationships here, and we've got an area here for thought tags, and here's the list of tags: high, cost, and urgent. And we also have thought types. These are the thought types that I've built into this template. So if you do get the template, you'll get all these thought types. And a thought type is quite relevant because you can see competitor. So if I want to add a new competitor, into my brain, I can thought type that. And I have some really nice project types too. So this web development is, let's say it's a green lighted project. I'm going to go ahead and select that because it's active. And I can go ahead and see what green lighted projects I have, or I can actually go ahead and connect this way my new website design to go ahead and thought type. So now it's got a thought type as a green lighted project and connect it to coworker B. Now when you're adding people into your brain, you can just go ahead and add them. So if I want to go ahead and add, let's just add Matt, Brigitte, and Travis into my brain. You know, obviously people are very important in terms of business brains, but what you can do is, of course, you can add tags for their area of expertise. So if I want to create a tag on something, I can go ahead and do that. So if I want to activate a tag, I've got different tags here, but I can also just click on this thought and create a new tag if I'd like to do that. And I'm going to create a new tag called Great Editing Skills. And now, of course, if I only have a small team, it might be obvious, but if I have this, I can actually go in to different people, and let's say coworker C, if I want to come back and add that tag them as great editing skills, I can go ahead and do that as well, or vice versa. I can thought type people. So Matt, let's just give him a thought type here. So let's set the type as an executive. So or make him a director. So if I make him a director, he now gets that thought icon and color. And we can go a little bit more into thought types and tags a little later on into the demo, but they do help you add a degree of clarity to your brain. So for instance, if I go back to my competitors and I want to add a competitor, let's just call this new competitor in China. I can do that, and then as I've added that thought, I can go ahead and type them right there. So in this case, I'll type that as a competitor, and then go ahead and add that, and so it's got the same color. Now, of course, when they're all in the section, this is, you know, it doesn't necessarily, it makes it look nice, but when it becomes really interesting is, you know, when you're referencing something else, maybe this new design website is actually influenced by this new competitor in China, and that's why we're doing a new design. It's going to be, you know, translated and so forth, so we have a link and connection there. So as I'm building my knowledge base here, you know, you can see how things come together. Now, of course, you can drag and drop existing information in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my budget area, and I've got some different documents here on the budget planning for this new website. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this financial plan that covers the costs of the website into my brain. And now I've got that document accessible right in the brain as well. And, you know, I can do a few others. Some of this stuff is going to come out of my operations fund, so I want to drag and drop that in as well. So now what I'm doing is I'm really building the knowledge on this, and I'm actually going to create a pin on this area in this particular brain. Now I'm going to actually go out to the brain and web and do some research. So new website design, I want to learn about, you know, what's the best way to design a new website. So I'm going to actually do a search web from the brain. So I just went up to options and hit search web, and I'm going to go ahead and that'll launch a Google search and do some research on this. So there's lots of different sites and so forth. And so here's an interesting article on 19 design trends for 2018 for your web. So I'd like to add this in for the team to look at. So all I have to do is drag and drop this article under my web design area, and now I've got that article right here in the brain. And the other thing that's really nice about the Brain 9 is this article will actually preview in the content area below. And actually, I'll flip it this way so it's a little bit easier for people to see. So now you can see in this section here, I've got a nice article on web design trends. I've got some information, I've got competitor stuff, and this is all stuff that we created literally in 5 minutes here on our new design in the brain. So you can see how nice it is to build a body of knowledge that's referenceable and easy to understand So this is just something that I did, and I wanted to kind of build off this template so you guys could see how easy it is to kind of make the template you want our own. Before we move into a few more complex examples, I want to show you a little bit more of the categories in this template brain, just so you can kind of get a sense of what else is in here. And I'll maybe make the thoughts a little bit smaller here with our slider so you can see a little bit more. So that's business development, and we quickly moved into marketing and a new project. You can also map out clients, so client management IDs. You can have different thought types and different vertical industries for your clients. All your active projects can go right in here, and in fact, that new website design, let me connect that back into this area. That should go there as well. Just double click, so I've got that there. So you can have an area for all active projects in your brain. Sales, this can be a brain in and of itself. It is absolutely amazing to use the brain for sales, because what you can do is all your sales research. If you have proposal templates, like we have different proposals for different size deals we're working on, different products, those go here. Sales territories, that can be mapped out, and your deal stages as well. So if you have different stages from building rapport all the way to closing a deal, we can cover that. And in fact, we have a lot of investment management companies that have complex deal cycles that visualize in the brain, and I will show you that actually as my next example. So this is a very nice area for sales, and it really does keep the sales team on top of their game. Now, you might be asking, as a salesperson, can this integrate with Salesforce.com? What about my contact management systems? And the answer is you can drag and drop URLs from Salesforce into the brain, and we're not trying to replace contact management, but we're trying to be the intelligent view of that. So what I do as a salesperson, and I do close many deals with the brain, is I just drag and drop my key active deals, right? So if this were my real brain, which I'm not going to go into, I'd have a thought for my top sales prospects. And then under here, I'd map out my strategy, I'd take notes, and I'd drag and drop any contact information that I had from Salesforce.com. And of course, you can use the notes. I actually like just having their phone number really accessible in notes too, because it's easy, because sometimes when you launch the big forms in contact management or my CRM or whatever CRM app you're using, it can be overwhelming. So you can actually put contact details in notes as well, and Matt can show you that as well. But I also want to just be clear, because I know a lot of sales information has to do with CRM. Same thing with customer service. We're not a case management solution, but we are the strategic view of your customer service. You'll be hearing that a lot, in that we're not replacing your databases or your contact management information, but we are the strategic view that can connect to that, as well as your files and so forth. So in customer service, moving right into that from sales, you can do a lot of stuff, known issues. So most of you might have a bug tracking system. We're not a bug tracking system, but what you can do is the top issues that are really bugging your customers or that are active, drag and drop a link from Jira. I know a lot of engineering teams work with, and then take notes or screenshots. All that can be added into your brain under customer service. What is also really wonderful is we have tons of call centers and help desks mapping out the brain in more of a troubleshooting, or mapping out their customer issues in a troubleshooting schema where they have issues, and then issues can be connected to solutions. And this actually reduces their call handle time as well. So, you know, I'm kind of giving everyone the whirlwind tour of how the brain can be used from start to finish in each department. So I hope this is resonating with some of you. So we'll just go through a few more departments and then dive a little deeper into some other examples. So that's customer service. Product development is absolutely amazing, because you can do a big knowledge base of product research. We have a lot of drug development companies, as well as fashion and movie companies and creatives that use the brain to develop their product lines and movies. And we'll actually cover a little bit of that with our JT Apparel sportswear company example, based on a real life company, but just a hypothetical example there. Here you track all your product releases, any issues you have with the product as well, and that connects to, of course, customer service. So one area of a business always affects another department, and that's where you can make these cross connections. And in fact, what we found, one of the benefits, one of our customers, California Casualty Insurance, talked about how when they first implemented our server product, the cross-departmental collaboration it facilitated, because if you do open up your brain across many departments, it becomes so much easier for people to add their knowledge because they get a sense of what's going on in your company. So, and then by the way, this is one brain on everything. We can cover this in Q&A, but I mean, obviously you might just want to have a single brain that dives deep on marketing, a single sales brain. So that is perfectly acceptable, especially if you're sharing with different groups. You can set different levels of group access to these brains. And again, that's something Matt will cover. So I think these are all kind of the main areas. Oh, operations, just going into there, you can do a lot of stuff, human resources and training, and also managing your new hires. And I even use it to drag and drop resumes. IT, we have a lot of IT developers who use the brain. We have full IT examples, so we can actually get into that. But anyway, this is a template example, minus the stuff I just created. If you do want to go ahead and get this template, you can email, reply to the message. We'll also post that, and that'll be available. And from there, what we're going to do is actually move in to a couple other examples. First another example that I want to cover real quick is an investment firm where they've used the brain to actually map out their business processes. So they actually are an investment company that invests in different companies and so forth. So they've got sections on commercial real estate where they've done some investments there. We've got everything from market research to terms of sales to appraisals that they're working on right now, prospecting, different companies that are different ways that they look for new investments, from getting information from analyst firms to conferences to qualified leads. And then the area that I wanted to show you is the deals in progress area, which is kind of neat. And what I'm going to do is I'll actually put on distant thought view so you can see. So in this particular company, they're training a lot of financial analysts, and their processes were so complex that it would take a lot of time for people to understand how to even move from the beginning phase of a deal to the final phase. So they created a brain of their processes so that people could understand where each deal was, and it really helps reduce their meeting time and as well as get new business analysts up to speed. So basically, the first phase in their business process was due diligence. And what due diligence meant is they have to look at industry analysis, any intellectual property and patents for a company they were looking at, management background, and just a few different laboratory tests if it was a certain product. Now, what this will do is each analyst would know not to miss a step. They would know, okay, have we done our due diligence? Did you do all your industry analysis? Did you do the intellectual property? Have you checked management background? So not only is it going to help people know what phase a deal is, and it will help them sort of adhere to company best practices. So if you have complex business processes or people who are constantly missing steps, whether it's in customer service or financial planning, I think the brain is a great tool to really clarify to people, what needs to be done. Just lay it all out there. And then the next phase was structuring the deal, where they do letter of intent, where there'd be all their letter of intents here and term sheets. Of course, here you'd have all the supporting documents. So it's very easy for somebody who's never structured a deal before to look at a past term sheet and say, okay, I can do this. This isn't so hard, right? And then finally, underwriting. This is where they work on financial models and work on insurance and do risk assessment. And then closing the deal, where they have to deal with escrow, funds transfer, legal approval, and finalizing contracts. And there's all kinds of documentation that can be done with us. And if any of you are, in investment management and do want a copy of this brain, again, more than happy to share it with you. But this is just an example, since we talked a little bit about visualizing the phases of a business process. And actually, on a lighter note, you can see that I am showcasing the Brain 20th anniversary wallpaper. Ooh-ah. So this particular brain has a kind of a more interesting background. And if you want to go ahead and set your theme or change your theme, that's in Brain Theme. So if that was, that's actually based on brainwaves. The designers actually took some brainwave patterns and put it together. But if that's too busy, let me go back to classic dark blue example just so you can see, because actually the theme really makes a difference. You can see here, so that's the deals in progress, what they look like in dark blue. And I know this is kind of a little bit of a lighter feature, but you know what? It's kind of important too. You want to kind of get the right brain. This is cold ocean if we're looking at deals in progress. Or let me go to the aurora lights. Let's use that. Oh, no, that one isn't licensed, sorry. Let me go out of that. Some of these are mine that I've actually added, so not all of these are. I experiment with themes a lot. Let's just go back to, we'll play it safe and go back to classic dark blue so you can get one final look at this deals in progress brain. And this is, a great example of where you can use alternative views. I'm going to make the Plex full screen here. And we've got some new wonderful views. So we've got, if I click on view, I have a normal view. I can also go to outline view. And what outline view gives me more of an outline. And we're actually presenting in a lower resolution, but you can see how I can scroll through each area. So I can see my deals in progress from due diligence to structuring to underwriting, all that kind of stuff. I can click on an area and it'll kind of move that way. I can open or expand or collapse different areas as well, so you can see all that information. And that is outline view. And then the final view that is new to the brain now, and that also gives you nice insight, is mind mapping view, where you've got a little bit more of a lateralized look at how things fit together quite nicely as well. So those are the different views, and of course you can just click back to go to normal view, and the view that I had before was normal with the plus button, which just gives you a little bit of distant thoughts. That is my favorite view, but you can do whatever you want. The other thing that's quite powerful for business users when you've built this extensive knowledge base is the search. So if I want to know about anything as far as, let's say, risk assessment, I can just start typing in first couple letters and boom, risk assessment pops up right away. From there, I just click on risk assessment and I'm in. I got the document phase 3 of underwriting. And, I can continue to do that and grow. If I'm interested in more legal, I can just start typing in legal and legal approval, commercial real estate approach, if that's what I want, legal approval. I'm now going into this section, so I can move very quickly to any area. So you don't just have to navigate a brain. That's the other thing, a little bit of a fallacy too. Yes, the navigation is great, but we are actually, the search will compare to any just search application. So if you really just want to put a bunch of documents in real quick so that people can take advantage of the search, we'll go ahead and cover more about search, but search is extremely powerful. And of course, my pins. There's an area in this brain called New Idea Zone. So this area is just a brainstorming session. So if analysts have new ideas for investments, they can go ahead and add that in. Somebody thought it would be great to partner with educational institutions and students for new ideas. So we put that in. That's something they're thinking about. All other kinds of things. Everything's fair game in your New Idea Zone. I actually recommend you have that. And then anything you're working on right away, you might want to put a pin on. There's a California Regional Independent Investors Conference, and I can just open that back up. And the great thing, again, is these links. They're right here in the brain, so you can actually see the information, start browsing. There's a built-in browser into the brain, so I can see that this relates to our research that we do on companies regarding intellectual property and patents. So it's very clear what we're interested in this conference for. So if I'm a new person, you really gain a lot of insight by navigating through this brain. And then on a lighter note, small business owners, oh my goodness, there's so much. You might just be a team of one starting a new Thai restaurant. So I wanted to also show you this example because this is another example where we have shop owners, we have people who are just freelancers. And in this particular example, there's all kinds of things from just construction planning. So in this particular example, there's a nice section on interior design where they've got images to bar designs, kitchen chairs, table designs, because the aesthetic of the restaurant is very important. And you're probably wondering, how do you do these wonderful zoomable icons? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go out to the web and do a search for bar designs. So search web, going on a lighter note here. And you can actually go ahead and drag and drop content. So here is, let me see, 289 best home bar images. Not exactly what we're looking for, but you get the idea. So I'll go ahead and I'm simply going to drag and drop this link. And, you know, again, the power of creating a knowledge base for all these web resources is just fabulous, especially when you're starting a new business. And let me actually change the search. I'm going to change it to restaurant designs, and let's see what pops up. And there is design a kitchen restaurant. So that's another link. And I'm going to add that in. And now let's say I like this look of wood and mixed chairs. A couple things. I can actually go ahead and I'm just going to reposition the two apps so you can, or two windows so you can see what I'm doing here. I can actually go to this thought on bar designs and right click. And what I'm selecting now is capture image. So when I select capture image, I get a Snagit app and I can actually come in here and just grab, maybe it's just the stools I want. I don't know if you can kind of see this. And I've snagged that. And now it's actually on that thought. So you can see that I've zoomed in on just the stool. Sorry, I used a brown over brown image. So that's one way you get these wonderful zoomable icons, which are absolutely fabulous if you're doing sort of visual design reference. The other thing you can do is you can just copy and paste images from the web. So let me go ahead and just go to images here. And let's see what else. What can we have? So there's an image here on sort of an eclectic design. So I'm going to create a thought called abstract walls. So we're thinking of doing an abstract wall design for this restaurant. So what I can do now is I can actually, if I want this whole image, just go ahead and just copy this image. And I can paste it into the notes area, but I won't get into notes. Matt can show you this, but I love doing it as a thought. And then just paste as a thought icon. So paste icon, you can see that. And now you can see this abstract wall design is a zoomable image. And this is where I'd come in and I'd write some notes on how cool and funky would this be if we did this in our kitchen section, you know, so on and so forth. And so this is just an example of you know, a smaller business operation. You have issues, cash machines in IT, electrical usage, food menu ordering, menu planning itself. So in this case, there's everything from the poultry selection to the noodle dishes that this restaurant wants to have going on here. And as well, of course, there is marketing, signage, our Zagat review, the branding, reviews that we're having, and of course, staffing, who we're hiring, servers, kitchen management, all that comes together really nicely in this brain. So this is another example, so you can get a sense of the diversity of brains from financial planning to running a restaurant. And then finally, as a segue into Matt's example, I'm going to go into my JT Apparel brain here, and this is the brain that we're actually syncing on. And I love Team Brain services because it's like the gift that just keeps on giving, because I can work on one section and then Brigitte and Matt or Travis or even Harlan will go into another area, and it's like, wow, it truly becomes the power of many. So this particular example, just to give you some background and take it from the top, is this hypothetical example. It's actually based on, like I said, we actually have clients in the fashion and apparel industry. So they've mapped everything out. This is a sportswear company, from their business development to their customers to their distribution. So one of the nice things about the brain is how easy it is to collaborate. So in this particular example, we can go into, actually, let me just go ahead and activate competitors. So you can actually see an example of live documents here in this brain. And let me go ahead and find in Industry Watch in business development. These are actual links to competitors. So for instance, and again, this hypothetical example, but they've got a link to Lululemon. So, and this is where I love, so this is something I kind of showed you just a blank, the template brain of competitors, but here's an example where we've actually plugged in real competitors on Lululemons, and there's one Power t-shirt where they've added even some zoomable icons. And so they're thinking about, what's going on in the competitive industry. And, likewise, there's a link to Nike and different Nike products that they have as well. And I'll see Nike website changes, so this might take a while to load. But you can see that this t-shirt that is under Nike relates to yoga t-shirt design references that this company is putting together under yoga gear. And this is also part of their new product lines for teams. So things can get very complicated with products because you've got a lot of research. And there's a new area in the company that we are looking at that I'm actually going to make a connection to, and it's called sustainable design. And this is actually an area that I built that Matt will now benefit from, and I've created a section here on sustainable design, so links to all kinds of things from the emotionality of durable design to just impacts of fast fashion, and this is in market research. So these thoughts are something that I actually created this morning. So now what we can do is go ahead and verify if Matt can see what I've done and take advantage of this information when he opens his JT Apparel.
Notice that I have my JT Apparel brain open, my copy running locally on my machine of the same brain that we just saw on Shelly's machine. Shelly and I are both keeping this brain in sync to the brain cloud so we can both make changes. And we've got additional people affecting and working on this brain as well. And so what I'd like to share with you is the benefits of Team Brain. Now, first off, before I get started, notice right away that when my thought is open, my note is loading up over on the right. And so just really quickly, you can see the notes are a way of quickly adding some content, whether you need to cut and paste from the web, type in an email address, a phone number. I use my notes for contact information as well as just checklists for different projects. So if at JT Apparel, the very first thing we need to do over quarter number 2 is come up with, I'm just going to create a quick checklist here, add the checklist icon. We need a new logo. We need a mascot. And we need a new techie website. So real techno website to get us started with all these fantastic new products that we're going to be releasing in the next year. So a couple of quick notes, and I can add on to that content at any time. Notes are indexed and therefore searchable. So if I'm looking for a thought that has the word, if I just type in mask, oh, nothing there yet. Here, let me, oh, because I spelled it wrong, M-A-S. M-A-S, notice M-A-S-C. Only one thought shows up, JT Apparel, and that's because it contains mascot, our new company mascot that we're going to be developing over the next few months. So all of those note results, or any note that you add into your brain is automatically indexed actually by your operating system and shows up in the brain when you do a search. So let's go ahead now and talk about running a couple of quick reports so I can find out what has Shelly been working on in this brain, what has Brigitte been working on. And the quickest way that I like to do that is click on the little clock icon you see in the upper right-hand corner of the brain. I can click and it is a list of recent changes. And I can scroll through this and go days and days back. Notice many, many changes all the way back into March, etc. And it'll update and show me all of that content. But most recently, I can see that Shelly's been making some updates, a lot of updates in market research. High priority market research. She actually marked this as a high priority item. And there's my market research and all of the content that Shelly has recently added. And I can also click to open up a thought history as well. So I can see not only has Shelly been updating this, I've done a few updates. I actually pinned this for myself for review by Matt. Shelly can likewise go in and pin a thought for review by Matt, so she can actually assign a thought to me to be viewed with a specialized pin. And that's something that we do quite a bit in our team brains. We assign pins for people. So I can bring Shelly's attention to a particular thought. Maybe I've made some contributions to the notes. So under market research, we need to find out what is popular in shoe design now in Germany. So I've got a great idea. I think we need to start with what's hot and popular in the German market right now and bring that over into the US. So I just jot down a quick note. I'll even timestamp this really quickly so everybody on the team can find out when I added this particular note. And now I'm going to take myself off on my thought tabs, or thought tags rather. I'm going to take myself off of For Review by Matt. And I notice Shelly doesn't have a tag here yet. So I'm going to create a new thought tag for review Shelly. And so I've assigned this to Shelly. And now when I refresh this brain and sync this brain back up to the cloud, when Shelly does her sync, she'll be able to see what I've been working on most recently here in the recent changes list. And also, I'll let her know that she has a new tag. We can even have a discussion thought that we do from time to time. So if I go back to my home thought, I can create a new thought called what's new or what's hot. I can attach thoughts, other thoughts. So market research is something that we're looking out for right now, and just let the entire team know created a new thought tag for. So just recent updates, a lot of different ways that we can share information. And of course, once again, I know that all of Shelly's changes and Brigitte's changes are actually being captured by the brain. So we didn't have to have a meeting. I let Shelly know there's a new tag for her. I've reassigned a new thought to Shelly without actually having to pick up the phone or have a new group meeting or a group powwow every day at 5 o'clock. We can go to a key area in our brain to find out what areas of interest everyone is thinking about and share and collaborate on that information. So you notice I'm not only seeing Shelly's changes. If I scroll down a bit further, I think last night, let me scroll through, there's a few changes by Brigitte as well. So Brigitte has been doing a lot with boxing shoes and shoe design in the brain. So I know where everyone is currently focused in the application. Now, the next feature that I want to share with you is how we went about the process of setting this up. Team Brain allows multiple people to interact with the same brain, and there's many different ways to share brains with one another. A few people wrote in, I believe it was Chin that wrote in, that their company does not allow me to store documents outside the firewall. So you're storing your information locally inside your brain. You can actually set up in options and preferences on the UI tab, you can actually specify how you want the brain to behave when you drag and drop. So you're moving files into the brain, copying files into the brain, or just linking to existing files within the brain. And if I decide that I do want to share this brain with other users, if I want to keep it local inside the firewall, and let's say I've created a brain and I just want Shelly to see this content. I don't necessarily want to collaborate in this environment. Maybe it's a new concept I'm working on. I create a new brain that's all about just waterproof running shoes. So I create that as a separate brain. I can click on File and go to Create Brain Archive. And here's an option where I can zip this entire brain up into a single file. Just send it to Shelly in an email or slip it onto a thumb drive, drop it off at her desk this afternoon. So I can specify if I want this a secure backup just for me. I leave the setting on that says only allow permitted users. In this case, I'm going to give Shelly access to this brain, so I'll allow anyone to restore the BRZ, the brain archive, and I back this brain up to a single file that I can then, however I want to navigate that file over to Shelly, whether it's in an email or just drop it in a local drive that we both have access to, et cetera. That's one way. That's the very, very simple way of sharing a brain. And keep in mind, That's typically for someone else that's going to see your brain in read-only mode. If they make changes to that brain that you want to incorporate into your brain, that's when you need to upgrade to TeamBrain services. So, TeamBrain services allow us to sync our brain to the Brain cloud, and I'm going to click on online and go into my brain access and sharing. This is where I specify what other TeamBrain users have access to this brain and what their access level is. So as you can see, Sean, Shelly, and Brigitte all have writer access. If I decide that Sean is working with sales and development, he's actually not contributing to product development and product research, but he needs to have access to that information. I can right-click on Sean and make Sean a reader. So he can still read and access all of this information, but he'll have no option for creating new thoughts, or when he clicks the sync button, he'll be syncing our changes. Shelly, Brigitte, and I are all making changes. He'll sync our changes down, so his brain is updated on his local copy, but he can't make any changes and upload those back to the server by being a reader. And down below is the drop-down menu for the other members of my team that I can assign some type of access level to this brain. This is also, if I'm syncing my brain to the cloud and not on TeamBrain, but I want to share my fantastic brain that I've created with other users, maybe fans of the software or other departments that, once again, need access to the brain, but aren't contributing as an editor in any way. I can change this to have public access and then just simply copy this web link, tweet it out, send it in an email so people can visit my brain online. So I'll save that. I'm actually going to copy that link. I'll save this and make sure my brain is synced. I think I just saw it syncing there in the background. But now I'm going to open a browser, and here I'm on the brain, but I'm just going to post this link. And now I'll have access whether I'm logged in or not, because I've made this brain publicly accessible. You can see I am not logged in right now. There's the login button, but I still have access to this brain on the cloud. So here I am in the browser, and I can continue on clicking and navigating my way through this particular brain. There's the thought that I just added, what's hot, market research, and here's what's going on with market research in this now publicly accessible brain. But the only way, obviously, to get there is if you know that URL. So many different ways for collaborating in a brain, or at least sharing a brain with other users. And in this scenario, for sharing an online brain, if I send this URL in an email or tweet it out, another person doesn't have to have the brain installed. This is all through the web browser. Now, like I said, I'm not logged in, so I cannot click and see I can try, but I cannot add new information, new thoughts, change the notes, change the content if I'm not an editor of this brain. As soon as I log in, I would be able to edit in the online version as well. So those are some of the TeamBrain features that I want to make everyone aware of. If you want more information on TeamBrain, please send us a note to support@thebrain.com. We can provide further details, and there's some great information and a very nice TeamBrain video tutorial available on our website as well. And now I want to take the time to create a new brain from scratch. We've been talking about getting these brain examples and people's business examples and building a brain. And I received a few different emails before the call. A few folks wrote in about business collaboration and thought process and things of that nature. And one example that I saw that I really enjoyed was Rick from upstate New York. Sorry, Nick from upstate New York. Sorry, Nick. Nick has some property in New York, and he's going to start a side business of raising honeybees. And I thought that was just a fantastic example. Small business, selling honey and probably wax from honeybees. And since you're just starting out with your new business venture, let's start a new brain for you as well. So Nick, this brain is for you. I'm going to click on File and select to create a brain. So here we go, Nick.
And that's great. And in addition to Nick, when we finish that one, Matt, Mark Schmidt wrote in about a resilient resort for top executives. So I'll take that one on.
Great, great, great. So here you can see I've created, oh my gosh, and this is perfect because the wallpaper that you see in the background is actually a wallpaper that I own. It's like,
need a copy of that.
It's meant to be. So this is one of my samples. As you saw earlier, Shelly and I play around a lot with fun and interesting wallpapers that really reflect the mood. This just by chance picked my honeycomb pattern, one of the themes that I have. And boy, that's just couldn't be more perfect. So I'm going to keep with that theme for my honeybee brain and my honeybee business. And the first thing that I'm going to do is create some high-level subcategories. So let's get this started really quickly. The first thing that comes into my head, and I have no experience in honeybees, but I'm just going to start about, it's a business, so distribution. And distribution would be of the honey that my little friends are producing and the wax. So notice that I separated these with a semicolon. Great starter trick. If you're just getting started with the brain, you can separate and create individual thoughts with that semicolon. We're also going to have an area for safety, is something that comes to my mind. I want to have the right equipment, safety for me, safety for my neighbors. Maybe I'm going to be purchasing, signs around the property or what have you to inform people that there are honeybee nests or hives, I guess they're called, in the area. How about an area where I'm going to look for resources? I want to make sure my honeybees are healthy. So I'll create a healthy and an area for just my finance. So let's start in finance. We're just getting started. I want to make sure I've got my finances in order for how many parts I can purchase, etc. The first thing that sort of comes to my mind, starting a new business, I wonder if there's any grants out there. I own a certain amount of acreage. I'm going to research grants for beehives. I said grants for raising bees. Let's see what's out there. So I'm going to use the Brain's built-in search web. Oh, I'm not on the right active thought. Grants for raising bees, and I'll click on F4. That opens up the search web. I can also go up to my tools up above and options search web. I can search on Google. That's fine. I'll search on Google for grants. Monetary grants for honeybees. This is great information right here in the web, obviously. And so I'm going to drag and drop. This looks like a nice long article that I want to familiarize myself with later. So I simply drag and drop it right there into the brain. So I'll refer back to this at a later date, take some notes, etc. So that will get me started with finance. Also under finance, legal ramifications, I might need some licensing and things like that. And I'm also going to create an area for my team and my team members, family business, we'll say, Laura, Spencer, August. That's my family actually, but we'll put them to work at Nick's Honeybee Farm. And grants was a thought that I was recently on, grants and legal. I'm actually going to connect this legal over to Laura. She's really great at researching legal, licensing, anything that I, make sure that everything is on the up and up legally for me to be doing this on my property. And so I simply want to quickly connect those two links from legal over to Laura. Maybe I'll assign Laura that task of making sure there are no legal ramifications for raising honeybees on our farm. Now, a few more features to get us started under, let's create a new area for technology. So there's sort of the old school technology that I know of, which are the wooden beehives. We'll just call it old school. But I'm sure there is new technology out there for, the first thing that I think of is maybe there's 3D printing for beehives. 3D. Okay, pringing. So we can just, anytime you click on the active thought, you're opening up the thought properties for that thought. I can also alt click on a thought to open up the thought properties and simply change the T there, 3D printing. And that's also where I can assign an icon. So select a stock icon for 3D printing. I'll go up to animals and there's a bee, perfect. So I can assign icons, and as Shelley showed you earlier, that's where we can also get to the area from here to capture a thought image with the sort of Snagit type of feature, or change color codes for a thought. And let's search the web on this as well. 3D printing, if I click on F4, 3D printing beehive. And let's go straight to videos. So maybe that looks fantastic. If this is a 3D printed beehive, that looks amazing. So I am going to capture this URL right here in my notes. Notes aren't just for notes. Notes also can preload YouTube videos. You can load up graphics. So you can see right there in the note content, without leaving this particular thought, I can just click on play and watch my video right over here to the right in the notes area. So that's going to be a great video for me to watch later. I've added a lot of content here into this brain, but I also want to incorporate another scenario that many people have suggested, which is thought process and decision-making process. So let's say under distribution, I want to find out, who is going to be distributing, who's going to be selling my honey. I'm not just going to sell this to the mass market grocery store down the road. I want this to be sold at high-end locations. Maybe I'm thinking Bed Bath & Beyond or Crate and Barrel, things of that nature. It's a really exclusive type of honey that I'm going to be creating. And so I want to map out this process. I'm going to be off busy making honey, but I want to map out the process and share my brain with my coworkers, so they've got the same process for a specific task. In this case, finding the right distributors or the right people that are going to be selling my high-end quality products. So the steps for me for honey distribution, first I'm going to create, first thing I'm going to do is send an email. And then I'm deciding if that email was well received, yes or no. If it's yes, then I want to set up a face-to-face. And I'll fly to the West Coast, East Coast, wherever it is to meet my distributors. So now the next step is face-to-face meeting. If the answer is no, we're not going to have a face-to-face meeting, I'm going to set up a 6-month follow-up. Now, what is involved in the 6-month follow-up? Well, if it's a company that I really like, obviously I found them and I'm trying to coax them into selling my products. So I'm going to make a little checklist here, or just an unorganized list of send a FedEx with product examples. Send link to video, etc. Whatever my 6-month follow-up process is will be listed out there in my notes. Now, as you can see right now, it just looks like I've got 2 options after sending an email, either 6-month follow-up or face-to-face meeting. I'm going to click on the link between these 2 thoughts and set up some link properties. So my 6-month follow-up is if the email was not well received. So I am going to click on this once again. Oh, let me double click on the link and open up the link properties. And I'm going to set up a new link type called no. That is the name of my link type. I'll edit. When I click on the link, I can edit the link type. So no will always appear as red. Very simple, straightforward. If it's no, they get the 6-month follow-up. If it's yes, I'll create a new thought type. Once again, a new thought type. Type called yes, and click to activate once again and modify my link, my yes thought type with the green color code. So now, as you can see, I'm creating a process to follow. So step 1, send an email. Yes or no, which direction are we going to go? If yes, the face-to-face meeting goes good, it's time to send a contract. Next step after contract, do they just sign the contract? Signed. And if no, they probably have disputes. And once again, I'll assign my link type. No. And if it's a signed contract, then it's yes. And of course, the next step after a signed contract is trying to start sending products. And if there's disputes, you know what the next step is after disputes? They need to talk to Laura. And so I assign talk to Laura as the next step. So now we're starting to see the business process. And you can even, after the 6-month follow-up, was it successful? No is going to be the 1 year. Follow up. And if it's yes, then they get the face-to-face meeting afterwards. So 6-month follow-up can also turn into a success. And if no, then we're not going to respond back to them for probably another year. So let's go ahead and view this in one of our expanded view options. I'm going to go into mind map view and make my, actually I'll minimize the notes and I'll make my thoughts just a little bit smaller. And as you can see, I'm starting to map out my entire business process. Let's go up to honey, I'll right click and activate this thought. And all the way back up to Nick's Honey Farm, I'll activate that thought. And now you can see how my brain, really, I spent a lot of time mapping out that honey distribution checklist in that direction. But you can start to see how my small business is really being mapped out. There's a place in my brain for every process, for all the research that I'm doing, all the materials that I need, the people, their assignments, the communication that I'm having with my customers is all in one location here in my brain. The next step, I can sync this brain to the cloud, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'll sync this brain. So that will be available online, and since it's online, it'll also be available from my mobile devices as well. So my final component, one last step I want to share with you that I can open up, and here is my camera. So I'm loading up my brain on my mobile device. You can see this is a list of all the different types of brains that I have available. And since I just created this, I'll need to download this brain onto my mobile device. There's my JT Apparel brain, and there it is, Nick's Honeybee brain. So I'll click, I'm downloading that brain. I can continue on modifying this brain, editing this brain. So there I've downloaded it, and now I'll open it and modifying it right here from the from my mobile device. So I'll take my brain with me everywhere I go, even if I'm out at the, I'm not sure what it would be called, the honeybee hives back on the North 40. I can open up my brain and do a quick report on the health of the honeybees or some new products that need to be purchased or whatever the case may be. If I take my brain with me on the go, wherever my business takes me, by syncing to the brain cloud. And Shelly, with that, I think it's time for answering some Q&A.
All right, great. Well, I was going to do the resilience resort example, but unfortunately, the brain is, I was going to downgrade back to the old version, so I'm in between upgrading and downgrading brains. I don't know if you want to put that on, or we can certainly cover that since we are pressed for time on a one-on-one. You know, the resilient, someone actually wanted to create a brain on a resilient resort. So I had that as central thought. And what I thought would be interesting for that brain is just web research on resilience and regeneration and ideas and just some inspiring thought topics with a nice background of maybe a person climbing a mountain or something like that. So that was what I was going to do, but we are pressed for time. So I don't know if we want to start that one really quickly or schedule a one-on-one for that. I'll let you call that, Matt.
Well, here I've just created a thought called the resilience brain. There it's got my old 70s wallpaper. Nice. I'll change that really quickly. Yeah, I think like Shelly said, it's a great idea for a brain, for a very inspirational brain. and again, creating the different topics of maybe new views, new methods for staying focused. I think I can't find the link in here, but I remember the question that came up was talking about preventing burnout or information for executives.
Exactly, that's Mark Schmidt. So I'm developing a brain for burnout situation. Normal therapeutic institutions do not work for high executives.
Okay. And one last category, fun ideas, new methods, tests, sort of testing your mind, etc. So each one of these could be different examples of different types of tools that a person can use. And maybe you even want to create a thought. Maybe you have your own 10-step process for preventing burnout. Here's a great trick to share with you. Now, obviously, you know, the person that asked the question knows more about this type of field than I do. But if you want to create something that is in a particular order, I did see this question come up quite a bit. We also have a hidden ordering system right here from within the brain.
Yes,
so
glad you that. It was Ron's question, and organized by thought type is the way to go.
Sure, organizing by thought type. I personally like the hidden ordering system. So 10 steps, there's going to be 10 steps down below. Step number 1 is maybe identifying the problem. So I'm going to label this .01. And notice it doesn't show up with a dot in front. If you click to open up the thought properties, then you see the full thought name. It's got the .01. But because the brain, by default, if I right-click on the background, you're ordering thoughts either by thought type. You can change to thoughts by name, but then it's strictly alphabetical. If step number 2 starts with an A, typically that would appear in front of identifying the problem. So first you identify the problem, then you address it. You say, you know what, I'm on the track to getting burned out, and my workload is going to suffer, so what can I do? So address the problem is .02. But because I'm using the hidden ordering system, it appears next, second in line. So another way, another trick that you can use within the brain application to have the different steps identified and in the desired order. So that can be .01 through .10. I always put the .0 something because I never go higher than 99. And from time to time, I'll even skip a few digits so I can always drop something else in between. So really quickly, if I say .05, hire a therapist, hire a helper, we'll say. But then I decide something else comes in between. So 1, 2, step 3 is hire a helper. Something actually is going to become in between there. So .04, I can always go back and say, take a break. So there you can see that sneaks up above the next step. So a couple of tricks that you can play around with, and I realize, you know, I'm not bringing a lot of content into this sample brain, but just really creating the foundation for how you're going to add your information. And maybe, and I did see it popped up, Mark asked the question. So Mark, you could also think about this as not just a map of how you are going to help your clients, but a tool that your clients can take with them. So after their retreat or after the resort, the webinar, whatever the case may be, you know, you've gone through these steps. Now you can zip this brain up and send them a copy, or now you can take this brain, sync it to the cloud, and give everyone at the resort a link so they can follow up with the remaining steps or refer back to some of the different courses or tips and tricks that you provided.
That sounds great. And you know what, actually, Jerry Mikulski's brain, I believe, I would be surprised if he didn't have a section on resilience and executive burnout. So we could get some interesting ideas there. You know, obviously, we can send you thought links to that. But Jerry's brain, for those of you that don't know, is sort of the largest brain on record created by a single individual. And he has all kinds of business topics and business methodologies. And so that resilience is sort of right up his alley. So also going ahead to look at that would be interesting. Okay, and then, Alan had written in, can you show again how you chose to order that by 01, 02, etc.? So just a repeat of what you've done, but I'll let you go. Oh, you found resilience. Awesome. So
yeah, it was there. I pulled it up and then clicked away really quickly. So Alan, to answer your question, just put a period or a dot in front of the number. If you know you're never going to go over steps 1 through 5, it can be .1, .2, .3, .4, .5. I usually, by default, I just say .01, .05, .10, .20, etc. So I leave space in between to sneak other thoughts in an ordered grouping of thoughts that I'm looking for. And you can go 3 digits out if that's important to you as well. If you're creating a brain the size of Jerry's, so now I'll jump over to Jerry's brain. If I wanted this large group of thoughts underneath resilience to be ordered in a specific way, I would start with .001, .002, etc. So just a dot and then a number and then a space and your thought name, and you'll be using the brain's hidden ordering system. So here I've just jumped over to Jerry's brain, and you can navigate Jerry's brain online, www.jerrysbrain.com. So as Shelley mentioned, it's the largest privately created thought-by-thought brain that is publicly available that we are aware of. We're rapidly approaching 1 million thoughts in this particular brain. And this brain was built thought by thought. This isn't a database that was imported. Jerry built this brain over time, and anytime he learns about some new technology, a new person, a new business, or just new ideas and information, he adds it into his brain and syncs this brain up to the cloud. This brain also can be downloaded as an app from the App Store as well, so you can navigate through Jerry's brain. And here's a great way to, depending on resiliency, which direction you want to go with this. Resilient life forms, resilient society, resilient redundancy even, fortitude, synonyms and similarities can be navigated through this brain. It's absolutely amazing and available online.
And I think those were kind of the main questions. Alex asked for the deals in progress template. That brain, as well as the business brain template, we will post under the recording, and I'm happy to email you those as, I guess, what's it called? The Brain 9 is not a brain, Brain 8. What's the lingo for the Brain 9? Is a brain archive? Is that the correct word, Matt?
Yes, that is a brain archive. Click on File.
Brain archive. And I think we've covered a lot.
And I saw a few questions about zooming, changing. You may have noticed that I changed the size of the fonts when we go into the different views. There's a little drop-down slider. There's one that appears for the notes, and this one on the Plex itself. You can also hover over the active thought, click on Control, and use your mouse wheel to zoom. So a couple of people noticed how we were moving the Plex up and down, just clicking to the side and dragging up and down, or hovering over the active thought. Click on Control and use your mouse wheel to resize. So you can really quickly adjust the brain to best fit the scenario or the size of the area that you happen to be in, or if you want to focus on notes, etc. There's a lot of very simple, very quick adjustments you could do to navigate through your brain.
And again, Jerry's Brain is jerrysbrain.com. We can tweet that link out, but that is the link. Somebody asked for that again. And then finally, George has a question. How are all of the attachments stored in the cloud or native on your computer? So just a little bit about that. You can, first of all, when we drag and drop, that will move what's the new default on Brain 9? Is it default? Is it to move the document into the brain? I think it is, right? Or make
default is actually to copy. Yeah.
Copy.
So if you go up to the preferences.
And be stored locally for syncing to the cloud. So I do recommend you keeping that option. Because then if you back up your brain to the cloud and something happens to your laptop, you will have all those documents securely backed up. Not only that, but you could access these documents from any machine, as well as your team members will need access. Now, of course, you can also create a shortcut to document or shortcut to network files, which a lot of business users do like to do. So you can do shortcut or copy. It's really up to you. But once you hit sync, anything that is stored locally in your brain, we're going to assume you're going to want a local copy, or the copies stored also on our cloud for online access and sharing. So that's how that works. I don't know if you have anything more. That was a question that came in right at 12:15 from George, right under the wire here.
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. The different options, you can set up the brain to be the default. There's also keystrokes that you can use to overwrite that. There's so many keystrokes, we could have a whole hour on the different keystroke options that we have. But notice if I go into options and open up my preferences, and that's the brain preferences on a Mac, on the keyboard tab, you can specify how you want the brain to behave when you click or press on a certain key combination. So in other words, my default drag and drop copies a file into the brain. However, if I want to just link a file into the brain, I can open up a folder, and I've got a SVG file here. If I hold down, for me, if I hold down Alt, drag and drop into the brain, that creates, you can see I've got a little black arrow icon there for that SVG file. That's actually creating a shortcut back to the original. And over here on the right, the icon actually loads up there, but that is a shortcut back to the file because I use that keystroke combination. So many different options to basically use the brain in the environment that works best for you. No two brains are ever alike, no two environments are ever the same. So linking might be your best option. If you are going to be collaborating and syncing to the cloud and accessing from your iPhone, from your Android device, then moving or copying files into the brain would be your best option. But you have the choice of selecting which works best for your environment.
All right, great. And I think with that, we're going to end today's session. Any final words of wisdom or anything else you wanted to cover before we close business planning?
Sure. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone, with all the great questions and requests for brain examples. If we didn't get to your brain example, or you sent in a question that unfortunately wasn't answered, I've got two different options for you. Number one, send a note into support@thebrain.com. We're happy to help answer any additional questions you may have. Also, join a Brain 101. Our classes are much smaller on the Brain 101. We typically have them every Friday. I'll be hosting tomorrow, and I'll answer all and any questions that you may have about the brain. So there'll be much more time for that question and answer period in the Brain 101. And of course, you can do that from our website at www.thebrain.com.
And finally, if you do, how do I access Friday's class, Gabrielle? Right off our homepage, or actually, Matt, pull it up. I think you go straight to support. Sometimes it should be listed in our news area below on the web page.
Absolutely. So if you go to thebrain.com, just the homepage, it's loading up for me now. If you scroll to the very bottom, of course, you can click on Learn and access free web training, or right here from our homepage, if you scroll to the bottom, there's a link for our Brain 101 classes. And we actually have a class right now every Friday for the next 3 weeks. So feel free to sign up for a Brain 101 class. Great.
And if you want to add a trial of Team Brain services for your team, we also can set that up. You can just email sales@thebrain.com. That's a free trial of collaboration for 30 days. You can see if you do want to expand. Maybe you're a single user and you want to try collaborating with your team and you don't know if they're going to take to it or not. That's perfectly fine. Just like the trial of our software, we can set up trial collaborations as well. And I think with that, we're going to end today's session. Hope you guys, wish you well in mapping out all your business plans and activities, whatever they might be, and hope to see you on future Brain Technologies webinars. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.